welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence,
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
and today we're talking about The Haunting. Meg, did you know what this movie was before you picked it?
Yeah, I saw it a million years ago, or I guess I saw it in 1999 when it came out. But I didn't remember anything about it. It was just one of those things where I'm like, I know that movie exists, and I knew that it was about it was a adaptation of The Haunting of Hill House, which of course just had a recent Netflix adaptation. So I saw it when I was a teenager, but I had not seen it since. How about you?
I've never seen this. I don't know why it wasn't on my radar, but this has a really stellar cast.
It does. So, it came out in the summer of 1999, like I said. It's starring Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Owen Wilson, and Lily Taylor. Luke pointed out that Lily Taylor really is the star of this movie, but they definitely don't really promote it that way. So that's kind of interesting. It had a big budget of $80 million, but it made a lot of money, 177 million. So it did make that money back. It was pretty much critically panned. It's 16% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was nominated for 5 Razzie Awards. So that kind of gives you an idea of how people felt about it. And I don't think it, I mean, spoiler alert to what I think about it, but I don't think it held up.
No, I know. I was like, I had no idea going in that this was that adaptation, and so I'm like, oh, cool. But, obviously we were very spoiled with Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House this past fall, and so this was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, the big swing and a miss on this one is the CGI. I understand in 1989 it was probably they were so excited to spend a bunch of money and do it, but for me, it I apparently it didn't work at the time. I don't remember how I felt then, but I just didn't feel like it was scary, and they use so much of it and rely so much on it, which is like the opposite of how Shirley Jackson writes, and in this Netflix movie, how the scares are derived. It's not like these big CGI set issues. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I one of the notes I wrote down was the little creepy kids, or like the ghost girl. That's not even scary. Wouldn't it have been scarier to have like a young girl play that part and like with creepy makeup and just moving ghostly instead of this like floating ethereal thing? Like that's not even scary.
No, no, that yeah, you're right. If they had just used an actress, it would have been so much creepier. But it's like one of those things where it's like I know at the time it was like, "Oh my gosh, we can do this now." But just because you can do it doesn't mean you should, and this is a great example. And we were just watching something earlier, and we were talking about the importance of characters, and I feel like apparently in this one I didn't care about the characters either.
So it's interesting. We noted this during our podcast on The Haunting of Hill House. You said this version right now that we just watched is a little closer to the novel because they come as strangers, and in the version on Netflix, they are a family and related, and so it plays with that dynamic. How did you feel about them coming together as strangers in this version?
I mean, I've said a million times, I really like that conceit. I've always liked movies that start out that way. I think that it works okay, and I kind of like that it's under the guise of this like sleep study. I mean, I think that's interesting. I think that they set up some of the characters well. I liked that Eleanor in this is very similar to Eleanor in the book. She's dealing with a very demanding disabled mother, and I liked the casting of her in this. Owen Wilson feels really strange to me in this movie. I don't know. We have boys the same age, and so we went through a big Cars stage. I don't know about you, but like just hearing Owen Wilson's voice, it's like I've heard Lightning McQueen so many times. Like I don't know if he can be anything else to me.
Yeah, that's true. And I can't necessarily take him seriously. Like I should have been taking him seriously in this movie and I couldn't. Also, I just recently read that statistic about how many times he said wow in his career, And when broken down, he's made $135,000.72 or something like that. Um, just on saying the word wow.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe I'm just jelly.
He did say wow in this movie, though. I was like, oh, did they literally watch every movie of his and go through and transcribe it? Maybe.
I mean, they must have. Did he say wow, but right before his head got cut off?
Probably. So um, this, like you were mentioning, this taking care of the mother. I mean, that's a real occurrence of having to take care of elderly or sick parents, and that thing with, where she would hit her cane on the wall and how that came into play later, and she just automatically gets up. I mean, those are creepy elements, and I appreciated some of that.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of like we hear some knocking, and then she's just like, it was creepy how she'd be like, I'm coming, mom. Like she forgot that her mom had died. And like, those are the kind of things that are scary to me. But when you start having big, huge creatures coming through the ceiling and stuff, and they're done with CGI like that, and you haven't set up, maybe, what, I don't know, maybe the atmosphere isn't set up well enough, or I don't know what was the missing link, but I just didn't feel scared.
I know it didn't scare me at all either, and I really wanted to be. So they're setting up this study of studying fear under the guise of a sleep study. Would you participate in a study of fear if they were like, you can come to this house, and they didn't try to trick you. They were like, we're going to study like the effects of fear on you. Would you do it?
Well, I I don't know, because like, yeah, because when it starts out and they're like going around and looking at the house, I'm like, I want to go there. That's my dream. I want to go look at the library there. So I don't know. I mean, an old spooky house, like I don't think it would take too much to get me there.
That's true.
What about you?
Yeah, I think I would. And I did not in a creepy old mansion, but I did a sleep study last year, and nothing scary happened. I mean, because it wasn't about the scare. But I mean, I guess the scariest thing is they tell you you're on camera and we're watching you all night, so you just know that people are watching you. So there's the fear.
Yeah, I don't. That is creepy. I don't like that. That's really. But speaking of sleep, so the night that I watched this, I was alone when I went to bed. I watched it, and then I went to sleep. And my husband ended up coming home and going to bed. Um, but I experienced sleep paralysis the night that I watched this.
Have you ever experienced it before?
When it happened, I realized that I had, but it was like one of those things that like I hadn't really maybe consciously remembered. But it was one of the scariest moments of my life. So what happened was, this was just like what, a week, 2 weeks ago. I woke up, and it felt, I was sleeping on my side, and I thought somebody was literally on top of me. Yeah, Kelly's face right now. I felt like somebody was on top of me, and they were panting in my ear, like they were breathing in my ear. And I opened my mouth because I'm trying to tell Luke there's somebody, we were in a hotel. I'm trying to tell Luke there's somebody in the hotel room with us, and he's on top of me right now. But I couldn't get the words out. Like my chest was all like, cuz somebody's on top of me. And I'm trying to get the words out, and then they're still breathing in my ear, and then I like woke up and I was able to like move. But it was really scary, and anyone who has experienced sleep paralysis, like I can see how people go to like a supernatural thing in their mind, because it was terrifying. And then the next morning, I like told Luke, I'm like, I thought that movie wasn't scary, but then that happened, so I'm like, maybe I just need to accept it scared me.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have not experienced sleep paralysis. I'm knocking on wood right now. But I keep hearing it described, like you were just describing, and yeah, we have a chapter about it in our upcoming book, The Science of Monsters, and it's real.
Like it feels like you're awake, like I knew where I was lying in bed. I knew, but I don't know. I don't know what the actual, I guess you're just in a weird dream state, I guess. But
Yeah, your body hasn't caught up to your mind.
yeah, it's so weird. And I just thought somebody's literally breathing in my ear right now, and I don't have the ability to tell Luke. And it was just awful. And it was so scary for like, it probably didn't last that long, but I was like, maybe the haunting really fucked me up.
Before you clarify that you were in a hotel, I thought you were gonna say like it was one of the dogs like on you and breathing in your ear, but
Yeah.
no, it was a ghost.
Yeah, yeah, that's the whole point of the story. Is
Meg believes in ghosts now.
there's a ghost haunting the Home 2 suites.
In Chicago.
Yeah, it's like this really new hotel, so that makes sense.
Oh boy. Do you know where they filmed this movie?
Where? I don't know. I'll look it up. But what I was gonna say about the house, it's interesting to sort of compare and contrast it to, um, the house in the TV show because the house in the TV show has more of a realistic feel to it. I mean, it's still gorgeous and gothic and over the top, but this house is like, okay, I'm looking at it. It says, um, Harlexton Manor in England was used as the exterior of Hill House and the billiard room scene was filmed in the Great Hall of the manor, while many of the interior sets were built inside the dome-shaped hangar that once housed the Spruce Goose. Um, wow. To think about those places being built, I guess no wonder they spent $80 million.
I was gonna say that seems like a big budget, but yeah, if this isn't an actual house that they actually built a lot of that from scratch. I mean, it was so ornate and all the carvings and like the huge bedroom sets and everything. That was a lot of money, I'm sure.
Yeah, they had a big budget. I'm just looking at, since I'm looking at the Wikipedia, it says that the film was burdened by reshoots, in part because the cinematographer Caleb Deschanel, who I believe is the father of Emily and Zoe Deschanel, left over creative differences 1 week into filming. So there's your trivia.
Well, I liked how they set up the female friendship. They had good conversations that didn't revolve around men, so it's passing our Bechdel test. And then they also didn't pit the women against each other, even though they're opposites. I mean, I realize that they are fighting a little bit later when Nell thinks that they're writing the stuff in blood or whatever on the wall, but it wasn't just like, oh well, they're two opposites, so they'll be catty.
They weren't like fighting over Owen Wilson.
Yeah, is that the option?
Also, Catherine Zeta-Jones' character was bisexual, I believe, based on what she was saying, right?
Yeah, so that was good.
For 1999, that's pretty good.
There were a couple creepy moments. Again, I mean, I didn't love the CGI, but when the ghost starts brushing her hair, that was icky.
Oh, yeah, that was icky. And again though, it would have been so much better with a little less computer. Oh, something to point out, the director of this movie, Jan de Bont, I don't know if I'm saying that right. He did Speed and Twister. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it seems, I mean, I guess he was hot at the time because those both came
Yeah.
out before this, right?
Yeah, so I mean those were both big movies that made a lot of money. So
The spiral staircase scene, I mean, that this really reminded me of the TV show too. And then also up until that point, we still don't know for sure if it's all in Nell's mind. But then we see that they all begin seeing things, because up until this point, she's the only one experiencing weird stuff.
yeah, I really I think they did a good job of sort of taking the sort of main tenets of Shirley Jackson's novel, sort of tying in this whole idea of like madness and supernatural. I've been doing research on that for our new book and about the female Gothic and sort of this idea that it often seems to be a woman is experiencing um, something supernatural and everyone's gaslighting her and telling her that it's not true, but she's seeing it with her own eyes. So I thought they did a good job of sort of showing that Eleanor isn't maybe crazy. In the book, it's kind of left up a little bit more to our imagination, but in the movie, they definitely pushed the supernatural.
The other thing about Nell is that I like how she goes from being terrified to fighting, and like she's gonna stand up for these ghosts and try to, make things right. But then I wrote down, I guess most final girls do. I mean, it's not like you aren't terrified, but they end up fighting.
Like it's that cheesy thing about courage is not about you're still scared. It's just that you do it anyway, and I guess that's kind of what it is. But yeah, I mean, she definitely has that noble cause in her heart of like, I'm gonna help these ghosts. And I liked the whole idea of the backstory and her kind of like finding out the history of Hill House and like that this evil dude lived there and
It's like her great great grandfather or something.
right, and that she's like coming home, so to speak. Which again, I was doing research on for the Female Gothic about the home and it being a feminine sphere and motherhood and all these kind of cool concepts that I think the novel itself holds. And this is unfortunately, I think, a really weakened diet version, but I guess, if this is someone's like into the Haunting of Hill House and it makes them want to read the book or something or watch the Mike Flanagan show, which is highly superior, then they should.
The CGI stuff reminds me of Crimson Peak. Because that I feel like that would have been totally in my wheelhouse, but I feel like the CGI took me out of that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think that I feel like that's I don't want to say everyone, but I feel like overall horror is kind of coming around to like, oh yeah, those practical effects are actually really what's scary. And when you think about the movies that have been successful lately, like the Jordan Peele movies and stuff, it's like nobody's relying on like that, a lot of that computer work.
This end sequence, I mean, we talked about Owen Wilson getting decapitated and the bones are flying out of the fireplace and all this, that statue thing like grabs Liam Neeson. I mean, there's all sorts of big things happening.
Can I just say, I was just laughing because Liam Neeson, like, he cut his hand and they made such a big deal out of it. It was like any other horror movie, if somebody like cut their hand with glass, they would just be like, like this house is trying to eat us, so let's not worry about it right now. But they like zoomed in on it. They were like, "Oh my god, like what was that? What a big
I don't know.
baby."
The other thing, they're dragging these people or these spirits to hell. Then that whole dragging thing reminded me of that scene or those scenes in the movie Ghost. Like when Willie from Prospect Place. I just remember all these details. And what's his name, Tony or whoever, they get dragged by the shadow people to hell. Do you know what I'm talking about? Patrick Swayze.
It's been a minute. I gotta watch that one again.
We should watch it for Horror Rewind, Meg.
Oh, I think we can. We can watch whatever the fuck we want.
There's ghosts in it. What else do you need?
I'm fine, like, completely expanding this to whatever we feel like watching.
The horror will be listening to us go on and on about Patrick Swayze. But I love that movie.
I gotta watch it again. My boys actually got it for me. I feel bad. They got it for me on DVD like a couple years ago just because of the cover. They just thought I would like it, So, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah, let's rewatch it. I like this plan. So yes, I my last note was, it's not even that the CGI was bad. It was just that there was too much of it, and it solidifies my opinion that my stance that I think I prefer practical effects in some cases. And a creepy child actually being there hiding behind a curtain is going to be scarier to me than a CGI curtain like being moved with like a not life-size child. Like she was tiny.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that in that second that you have the option to be scared, your brain, speaking of your body catching up with your brain, but like your brain realizes it's not real and that you're looking at something computerized. I mean, we just, even today, even in the best CGI, like we just saw Shazam and there were times where I'm like, oh, okay, that could have looked better. Which, I mean, think of how recent that movie is and how much money they had. Because at the end of the day, I can tell if it's not real. But if you look behind a willowy curtain and there's a little creepy kid and it's a real kid, like that sort of like base, I don't know, fear is going to come in, that primal fear. I don't know.
And, or even, and it doesn't mean even like supernatural is out of the picture. Mm-hmm. I mean, somebody just floating there, but it's an actual person floating. Or like a ghostly figure, but it's done in a way that's not fake looking. Like, I don't know. you know what we mean, right, listeners?
Well, even like something cheesy like that movie Dolls that was so delightful. I mean, imagine if they were trying to CGI dolls in there. What made it delightful, part of it were like these were real dolls, that they were working with. So I don't know. If I ever have the chance to make a big budget movie, I'm not going to use too much CGI.
No, I agree. Well, let's rank this movie on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect movie. Should we use Owen Wilson wows?
Yeah.
How many wows do you give The Haunting?
I'm just going to give it 4 because it was boring. If you want to watch an adaptation, just please watch the Netflix show. Or I believe there's a 1960s movie also called The Haunting, and that's probably better. And I mean, I don't know. It had all these big stars in it, but it really fell flat for me.
I wrote down initial number after I watched it, a 5. I think that's being generous. I mean, it's a well-made movie. It's not terrible to look at except for some of the CGI stuff. And it's not even that the CGI is terrible, like I mentioned. It's just not scary. Sigh. So anyway, I mean, I don't know.
It's hard to believe it's 20 years old. Like, it's 20 years old, which is crazy to think about too. But I mean, I'm not giving it any more points for that because I just talked about Dolls and how delightful that was, and it is a lot older. So, but it's just interesting to think about.
It is. And all of those actors are still around and working.
Yeah, good for them. They all have credits, and I'm sure there will be another Cars movie soon.
Oh boy. You know, Lily Allen, that's her name, right? No, Lily Allen is the singer. Lily Taylor, she is such a delight. She was on an X-Files episode. She was on 6 Feet Under, which is one of my all-time favorites. What do you love her from?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, I know I like her, and I remember even just going through IMDb. I think she's just one of those, like, predictably uh, consistent actresses who is unique, and you just appreciate her presence in whatever she's in. And it's a shame that they marketed the movie like she wasn't the star, because she is definitely the star of this movie.
She is. She's wonderful. And Catherine Zeta-Jones, I mean, she's always great too. I mean, I love her as I can't think of her character name now, but in Chicago. I love her.
And Liam Neeson, I mean, I like him. He can be in good things. Although lately he's kind of in all those movies that are like the same.
And he also had those racist comments lately.
Well, okay, I like him in Love Actually.
Get your act together. And Owen Wilson, I mean, have you ever been in love with Owen Wilson?
He's kind of cute. I like blonde guys. But I mean, in love is probably pushing it. And now, like I said, I think after the Cars phase of my life, when Fox was really into it for a while, and I just listened to Cars and then Cars 2 a lot, the sound of his voice is just like, I don't know. I can't.
And it's so specific. He has such a specific voice. It's not like he changes it up for every character or anything.
Yeah. It's interesting how it can be. Like I've been listening to this podcast. It's a really good one, a true crime podcast, and it's hosted by Yardley Smith from The Simpsons, and her voice is exactly Lisa's voice. So it took me a long time, because she's talking about murder and all this other stuff, and it took me a while to like just accept that her voice is the same, but it's so distinctive. It's just a weird thing.
Yes, voices and voice actors. It's true. Like they sort of get boxed into like how you think of them or imagine them or picture them. So yeah, Lisa Simpson's teaching you about murder.
Yeah, it's called Small Town Dicks, and it's good.
Nice. As in detectives, right?
Yes, as in detectives.
Excellent. Well, we hope that you're having a great week, Rewinders. And until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.